while Latinas are motivated to vote and to participate, there are gaps. And one of those biggest gaps is a confidence gap in our community. And so that's not political, that's cultural.
Let me introduce the two awesome women that we have with us this week. First, she is a national best-selling author, a Crooked contributor, and she has a new interview series, La Historia Uncovered, which uncovers the lesser-known Latinx history in America. You know her, you love her. It's Julissa Arce. Julissa,
hello.
Hi.
So glad to be back.
And last but not least, finally, you know her from a little indie called Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, among her many other projects. She's an actress, an activist, and she just recently launched the aforementioned She Se Puede, a digital lifestyle community created for Latinx women. It's America Ferrera.
Hi.
It's so good to have you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
How are you doing today? How's the war and the political season treated you?
That's such a loaded question. How are we doing today? Oh my God. You know, look, I think I have tunnel vision right now, which is just like do everything that we can possibly do in the remaining weeks before November 3rd to get as many people participating and voting and getting their early voting ballots in. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm choosing to focus on. I think there's a lot to get buried in and buried under. But to be honest, I've been appalled and terrified pretty consistently for 5 years now. So I feel like, you know, the daily breaking news, it really doesn't reveal very much new information. We are, you know, our democracy is on the brink. It's probably been on the brink for quite a time, but we're at a turning point, and nothing feels more important than speaking the truth in this moment about what we're actually in and what lies on the other side of this election. So that's how I am.
It was an essay question.
Yeah,
so that you answering with an essay is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right about staying engaged and keeping our eyes on the prize, because it is close. It's like when people are hearing this, we can technically say the election is next month.
I want to say, like, the election is actually right now. The election is over on November 3rd, but the election is now. And that's what people have to wrap their minds around. Like, we are in this process, and there are going to be so many obstacles between now and then, and even after election night, that we just have to be so wide-eyed about, you know, that this is not going to be a regular, you know, election night. It'll probably be days and potentially weeks of an uncertainty about, you know, what the outcome is going to be and where we're going to end up.
Yeah, I don't even want to think anything positive or negative, because all we know is like that we can control today. You know, I get so like nervous thinking about election day, but it's like all we can do is what are we doing today? So I think that's an important mental health step that we can take. America, we're going to get back into talking about politics and getting the vote out. But first, can you tell us a little bit about She Se Puede and the impetus for launching the community and its goals?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So She Se Puede is a new online platform and community for Latinas by Latinas. It was founded by a group of Latinas from varying backgrounds. From obviously, Eva Longoria and I are in the entertainment industry. We have activists and organizers like Carmen Perez and Monica Ramirez and Jess Morales Roquetto. We have women from business backgrounds and research and polling backgrounds, and really just this amazing cohort of founders who were inspired mostly by the urge to build long-lasting power in the Latino community. We want to see Latinos and Latinas specifically showing up in every space with the power that actually belongs to them, which is to say a lot. You know, of course, everything goes back to the election for me, but like when we look at any given field or industry, the the power that lies in the Latino community and the Latina community specifically, because Latinas are the CEOs of their households. They're small business owners. They run things. They say where all of that trillions of dollars of consumer power goes in their households. We need Latinas to actually hear and believe the truth of how powerful they are in this country. And we have a massive gap in our culture that, you know, at best we're invisible, and at worst we are fed very negative stereotypes of who we are and what we're capable of, and what our place in this society is. And so She Se Puede was founded as a cultural revolution for Latinas to be celebrated, to be affirmed, to be inspired, and to be informed about all of the things that matter to us. Everything from, you know, working out to you know, our workplace, everything from building our resumes to learning our history, like Julissa's amazing series that dives deeper into, you know, just us exploring our identity in ways that current culture doesn't really make space and room for. So we're building a community where we get to tell our stories, and we get to see ourselves, and we get to lift each other up and live in our power. And that is not going to happen in an election cycle. It's not going to happen in 4 years, and maybe not even 10 years. This is a generations long culture shift that we are embarking on, and we're so excited about it. And the truth is that Latinas are already powerful. We're out there succeeding and killing it in every realm, in entertainment, in politics, in science and technology, in medicine, in journalism. And we need that story told. We need the truth of our impact and the contributions that we make to this culture to be seen. So that millions of other Latinas growing up have the examples and the role models for what is possible for them, the way that Julissa and I grew up with basically none of those role models. So we're creating it, and we're really excited about it.
That's awesome. Julissa, do you have anything to add about the importance of a space like She Se Puede?
I mean, I just wanted to clap the whole entire time that America was talking, because I was like, yes,
can I vote for her for something? What is she? Is she running for something?
Talk about it. Yeah, I mean, the you know, I was super excited about the launch of She Se Puede. I am a friend of She Se Puede, and know a lot of the women that were behind it, and knew that it was going to be powerful, and have just been so delighted with the early stages of it. I mean, it just launched within the last month, I think, and already the powerful conversations that are happening. And to me, one of the things that has been most important is the support that She Se Puede is giving the entire community, right? So it's not just about She Se Puede, but it's about having a spotlight on other lifestyle brands and other Latina creators and content creators, and you know, the support that I've received even personally for La Historia Uncovered has been amazing. And so I think I'm just really happy to see how we're building community, which is bringing everybody along with us, not just you know, me, I'm gonna do this thing and then forget that there's a whole community, but truly building the community and bringing people along the process. And that's been just really amazing to see. I'm so excited about it. I've been excited about it, and every time I hear America talk about it, I get even more and more excited.
I have to say, one of your co-founders, Stephanie Valencia, is one of my longtime colleagues in the White House, and she is just one of the smartest people I know. So it was very exciting to see her be a part of this.
She is one of the smartest people, and she's such a badass. I mean, as you just said, she worked in the Obama administration. She worked for Google. She was doing such incredible work in her field. And a couple years ago, she made the decision to found a research lab to research the Latino electorate, because nobody else is doing it. And truly nobody else knows how to do it. And it was largely her findings that were based on facts and data that guide us on a day-to-day basis, and guided us to the truth and the reality that while Latinas are motivated to vote and to participate, there are gaps. And one of those biggest gaps is a confidence gap in our community. And so that's not political, that's cultural. Right. Confidence is cultural. Empowerment is cultural. And so anyway, Stephanie is a badass. We love her. We're so lucky to have her on our team. And she's just like, she's our secret weapon.
Well, now I'm going to make sure she listens to this since it was a Stephanie Love Fest.
Let's get into talking about the election. Like it is coming up, and it looks like Latinx voters are going to be, they're important every single election, but this one is going to be huge. Julissa, in America, either of you can jump in. Like, can you speak to the significance of the Latinx vote in this election and what the difference could be for the Biden-Trump race?
There are 32 million eligible Latino voters this election. And every year, 1 million Latinos turn 18. So every year we are adding 1 million new voters, right? At least. And it's crazy to me how, given that we are today the second largest voting bloc, how little investment there is in our community, how it's only every 4 years that anybody pays any attention to us. And in between those 4 years is like we don't exist. And so that's never going to motivate people to go out and vote. When, when I think about Texas, like Texas is not a red state. Texas is a non-voting state. Like less than 50% of people in Texas vote. 30% of the electorate in Texas is Latino. 30%. But tell me how many, right now we're in COVID, but before that, how many field offices the presidential candidates set up in predominantly Latino neighborhoods, right? Not many. In California, also 30% of the electorate. And only Bernie Sanders had, to his credit, had built a really amazing on-the-ground operation that was where Latinos are. And so Latinos are always really important to every election. I mean, you say this election is the most important one, and it is, particularly for our community, because we have been demonized every step of the way. I mean, this president launched his campaign with his foot on our neck, and it's insane how little investment gets made in our community. And so, like everything else, we are the ones that have to do it for ourselves. And I think that's part of what She Se Puede is doing, right? And that's what all of us have to do. It's like, okay, you know what? There aren't books about people like us, let's go write them. There aren't shows about people like us, let's go make them. There aren't polls about people like us, let's go create a whole polling agency that focuses on us. And so the Latino vote is really important, but we have to make concerted investments. We have to spend as much money, time, and capital as we do courting the white rural voter. Like, right. There needs to be the same number of dollars that are spent in Ohio as there are like in Texas. And we've got to, I'll pass it on to America, but we've got to think bigger than just Latinos in Florida. Because Latinos in Florida are only 20% of the electorate, and Cubans are now not the majority of Florida Latino voters.
No, in Florida, 40% of Latino voters in Florida are non-Cuban and non-Puerto Rican. So people who think that Florida is just Cuban and the new influx of Puerto Ricans, that's certainly true. But 40% of Latino voters in Florida are neither of those. And to your point, Julissa, the path to 270 electoral votes runs through Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, all states in which Latinos are the margin of victory. And sorry, let me amend that. Latinas, female Latina voters can be the margin of defeat or the margin of victory in Michigan, in Wisconsin, which is not where people like to think about where the Latino vote matters. And like Julissa was saying, like my own experience is that since 2005, 2 months before an election, my phone starts ringing off the hook. Help us get out the Latino vote. Help us get out the Latino vote. As if like Ugly Betty showing up at your mall is gonna make you excited about the democratic process. Like, yeah, maybe people will show up for a picture, but it's insulting. It's insulting to our community to think that we're going to show up in droves and then blame us when candidates, when both parties, when an entire process where billions are poured in to campaigns, when we are an afterthought in every single one of those calculations, and then the blame is placed on the Latino community for not showing up, when the truth is the Latino community is no different than any other community, white, Black, Asian, indifferent. Voters engage when they are engaged with, when candidates and the process care about you and show up. The number one indicator for whether or not someone is registered is how many times someone has been asked to register. No one asks our community to get engaged and to be involved. And so this thing of, you know, of course there's personal responsibility within the community and we need to show up, but there's a real lack of investment, as Julissa said, a real lack of engagement, which really just translates into not caring. And why that is devastating for our community is that all of the people who do not think it is important to engage the Latino community till 2 months before an election are not afraid of us.
Yep.
And that's a problem, because when you're not afraid of us, you cage our children, you deport our mothers and our fathers, you call us any names you want, and allow hate crimes in against our community to rise and rise and rise. And so the lack of threat that candidates and people in positions of power feel for not engaging our community is truly, truly detrimental to us. And as Julissa said, you know, 32 million eligible Latino American voters. If 32 million Americans don't have access to the polls, that is not a Latino issue. That is an American issue. That is a democracy issue. Our democracy cannot be whole and healthy if 32 million eligible voters are a footnote to every party, every candidate, every election. That has to change. And yes, we obviously are doing what we can within our community to build power that is meaningful and can turn out our community, but we can't do it without the rest of Americans opening their eyes to why it should matter to them that Latinos can access democracy.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, or you kind of implied earlier, the Latino community is very diverse. Like, it's definitely not a monolith, and you know, there's a lot of different people coming from different places. What do you think is an effective way for politicians to reach Latino voters versus an ineffective and pandering way? You kind of mentioned the sort of like wait until the last minute and like kind of ham-fisted, but like what are some ways that politicians should steer the way that they reach out to you guys?
I mean, first of all, they could just acknowledge our existence. I mean, when you think about the primary debates for the Democratic nominee, I mean, we were sitting there begging for one of them to mention the Latino community. And never mind immigration. What about the impact of COVID on the Latino community? What about the fact that we're 18% of the population, but we're 34% of essential workers? We're keeping food in every American's home. Well, why aren't they talking about our community when they talk about access to healthcare and access to jobs? It's not like Latinos are like, please talk about rice and beans and make us feel seen. It's like, we're saying, acknowledge our existence, acknowledge the brunt of so many of these issues that fall on our community's shoulders, and do it meaningfully, do it authentically, do it the way that you talk about the economy. Why should talking to Latinos be separate from the way you talk about how the economy impacts everybody else? Just acknowledge that we're here, and acknowledge that we are a massive part, and also people who carry the brunt of so many of the issues that impact all Americans.
Are there any candidates that you guys feel are doing a particularly good job at reaching out that other people could maybe like take a look at their playbook and be better?
Well, I think, you know, and in all transparency, like I did not vote for Bernie in the primary. So everything I'm going to say now, next, is not because I'm like, because I was like a Bernie supporter. I did support, though, was the way he ran his campaign. I mean, he really, truly invested in the Latino community, and that's a lot, thanks to Chuck Rocha, who was a huge part of that. And as he says, I'm giving a shout out here. He wrote this book, Tio Bernie, where he talks about what they did during the campaign, how they engaged Latino voters, and how, like I said earlier, they were where Latinos are. They opened many field offices that communities like Bakersfield, California, large Latino community, for the very first time, there was a presidential campaign field office in that area. For the first time, it's 2020, right? And for the first time that happened. And so there has to be a true investment that doesn't just come every 4 years, but that there's a permanent presence there. There's a permanent engagement with the Latino community, and so there are people who are doing it correctly. To America's point about Latinos having a stake in every part of the conversation. Immigration is a passion. It's a passion issue. It's something that deeply affects our community, but it's not the only issue in the Latino community. It's a really, really important one. But healthcare is a big issue. 1 in 4 children in public schools around the country is Latino. And so education and the way that we are failing children is a really important issue for the Latino community. And
it's all the reasons people immigrate to this country, right? It's not like, it's like immigration is this umbrella issue, but if we're talking about why people immigrate to this country and what the promise of this country is, it's for all of these things. It's for economics and access to healthcare and access to opportunity. So it's naturally, all of these issues are implied when you're talking about a community so impacted by immigration.
Yeah. And America America, the country, has to realize the success of this country truly is tied to the success of the Latino community. If the Latino community does not succeed, if our children are not learning in school, America is not going to continue to be a successful country when a quarter of its citizens are uneducated and underpaid.
Let's pivot really quickly. I feel like we could have this conversation for like hours and hours, but let's pivot really quickly to the gender gap when it comes to voting. Like across all demographics, men are more likely to support President Trump than women. So what's the fucking deal? Like, why is it, like, what do you guys make of the gender gap within the Latinx community? And how do, like, can Latinos win this on their own? Or do they need to try to convince some Latino men to come over and join them?
Latino women on their own can be deciders in elections. But you're absolutely right. There is a gender gap with how Latinx voters vote. And, I actually don't think that it's different for Latino men than it is for, say, Black men or white men. There is clearly a culture of toxic machismo across demographics that Trump is speaking to, and he knows. I mean, he knows that's what it is, and I don't know that there's much else to say other than a sense of entitlement, a sense of feeling like there's a status as a man in this country, in this world, that many young men are really relate to the fear of losing that status and losing the ability, whatever else they're struggling with in their lives. There's at least they have that, right? And if that can be protected, then they're better off at least than 51% of the population. So, you know, it's an issue in our community, and it's an issue across demographics, as you say.
Yeah. And let's just also, like, you know, like, yes, we need Latino men and women to vote against Trump. But also, you know, white people need to get their shit together, because, you know, across every age group, across every educational level, white people voted for Trump. And so yes, it's on us, the Latino community, to talk to our people, but, like, you know, white people got to talk to their people. It can't be all on us.
Yeah, I'm dreading this year's annual meeting of the whites, because it's going to be
The whites. The whites are awful. Fucking Karen.
Just, guys, this was a great conversation. Do either of you have any closing thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking, as you know, as we were talking about, you know, what role do candidates have in you know, engaging and investing in the Latino community? You know, I think that responsibility belongs to everybody across all industries. You know, I think it belongs to journalists to not just tell the story when we're, you know, in front of an election. Like, care about these issues year round. Interview Latinos contributing in big ways all year round, every year. You know, tell these stories to people in positions of power across healthcare, across the legal world, across, you know, technology and entertainment. You know, this is not, politics on its own is not the reason we're in the state that we're in. We all have played a part in the culture that we are breathing, and the narratives that are being told politically are supported by everything else. And so all of us in all of our different jobs, careers, industries need to be thinking about the role that we're playing in this current state of things, and how we are, you know, at the kind of very least, or I guess at the least harmful, you know, ignoring the responsibility to change the very harmful and you know, life-threatening, to be honest, narratives that are pushed on our community. So we all have a role to play.
Julissa, anything to add?
Yes, I concur. Like you said, like, I feel like if I start talking, I'll be talking for the next like 10 minutes, because it's, you know, I think you can tell, like, we care about these issues very deeply, and all there really is to add is that America needs to care about Latinos as much as Latinos care about Latinos.
Well, that's a great final thought. America Ferrera, thank you so much for joining us. Julissa, stick around.
Thanks, guys.